Hey, Psych. Okay, so I am going to make individualized videos for each module. So right now I'm going to go into module 55. So I just want to bring your attention to the Google Classroom. This is going to be your hub for everything, especially as we move into full online classes. So you'll see that I posted a few days ago, I posted in here the Unit 11 slides. These are essentially the slides I would have used in class for the entire unit. So I'm just going to go through the ones that are pertinent and relevant to Module 55 today in this video. So if you go in there and you open up the slides, so I already have them open on the next one. So I'm just going to go into present mode so it's a little bit easier to see. So Module 55 is an introduction to this unit, which is all about personality. So personality essentially, and this is all again module 55, which starts on page 555, convenient. So personality really is all about an individual's characteristic pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting. So it's the things that kind of make us us. And obviously it's impacted by a variety of things, and that's what this whole unit is about. It's about four different perspectives that think, well, personality comes from this. Well, no, it comes from that. But again, it's all about the way that we kind of think, feel, and then act. All right. So, as I said, there's going to be four perspectives that you are going to be introduced to throughout this unit. Module 55 is all about the first one here. So, it's going to be all about, okay, I can't touch that. It's going to be all about the psychoanalytic, psychodynamic perspective, more specifically the psychoanalytic one. In the other modules, I'll get into the other ones, so don't worry about those for now. We're going to look at psychoanalytic. So the psychoanalytic or psychodynamic was started by this guy, Freud. We've talked about Freud before. If you remember, Freud was all about the unconscious mind, meaning like the things that we're not quite aware of that are like lingering deeper in us. And his whole thing was that he thought it was all about like sexual desire and kind of like those underlying like kind of like just deeper sexual desires that human beings have and how it's a lot of times related to their parents. So Freud is probably one of the most well-known psychologists. You just got to know who he is. So the central theme of this perspective is that our personality comes from a deep hidden place, and it's called the unconscious. So if you were looking in the textbook on page 557, you'll see there's that picture of an iceberg. So I'm actually going to kind of I'm going to X out of here and show you. I took some notes on my own. So you'll see here's my notebook page pretending I was a student. So I just wrote like general things about Freud, and then I focused in here, as you'll see, I'm circling over it right now, this picture of the iceberg. So Freud's whole idea was that as humans, our personality is divided into these three kinds of like personas. I don't want to call them that, but that's kind of the best word I have. It's the ego, the superego, and the id. The ego is the tip of the iceberg here. So it's the part that's like the actually conscious one. Our ego is our personality that just kind of shows out every day. It's our reality principle, meaning it's the part of us that just it's the mostly conscious one. It says like it's trying to be realistic. So like, for example, if I was just saying like, you know what, right now I'm just being realistic about how productive I am today, and I'm going to get a few things done. I'm probably not going to get as much done as I want to, but whatever. So underneath that though, I have the superego and the id. The superego is like the better version of the ego. It's like the super version, right? Like a superhero. So the superego is our future planning, idealized version of ourselves. It would be like, for example, my superego would say, well, Miss Anderson, Rachel, you're at home. You should be doing all these things. You could learn this new thing. You could start this. You could do that. It's the one that's like, when we get out of this coronavirus hole, you could be going and doing these amazing things. My id, on the other hand, is like my childish unconscious pleasure principle. This one is all about, well, you're stuck at home and you can't leave. So like, why not just sit and watch TV all day? Because you can do it. So it's the one that's like more impulsive. So those are important to understand. And again, the superego and the id are the ones that are kind of like underneath. They're the unconscious ones, meaning they take up most of our thought, is what Freud thought. So I'm going to skip forward over those ones just because I already went into that. So again, Freud, I had the picture here as well. So this slide really helps if you want to look at this one. So again, the id, the superego, the ego. One is conscious, the other are kind of the unconscious, the less aware ones. The main things to know is that, again, the id is all about our pleasure principle. They want instant gratification, kind of seems like a kid. The superego is like the best adult version of ourselves we could ever imagine. And the ego is like, that's where I am right now. So the next thing that we had were Freud's psychosexual stages. These are not super important and they are not used anymore. But he theorized that we go through these different stages because, again, he was all about sex. And first we went through the oral, the anal, the phallic, the latency, and then genital. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here just because I feel like you get it and you don't need to know that much about it. There are a couple other terms that come up in this module related to Freud and his psychosexual stages. And they were Oedipus complex. I think I've talked about this before, but he believed that during some of these stages that people develop this thing called an Oedipus complex, which means that you kind of have sexual tendencies to want to kill your dad so you can get with your mom if you were a guy, and vice versa would be the Electra complex. Obviously, there is literally no science found in that, and that's why a lot of people don't follow what Freud believed in. But again, that was something he thought about, and it might come up. The last thing I want to talk about with Freud is defense mechanisms. So again, Freud thought that like everything about us was kind of unconscious, but we had to protect our ego, meaning we want to make sure that we are doing things so our anxiety doesn't get too high and our personality stays like normal. So he believed that we had these defense mechanisms that we use to protect ourselves. The most basic one was repression, and repression is like putting everything kind of back, but he goes through other ones such as regression, reaction formation, projection, rationalization, displacement, sublimation, and denial. So definitely take a look through those and look at the examples. But if you go over actually to the packet that you guys were working on, so I'm going to actually just scroll up. So module 55, I just kind of went through those main things. The assignment for this was the Freud personality blog post. I kind of already talked about this in the other video, but this is where you're basically going to pretend that you're your ego, your normal reality conscious self. And then you're going to respond to like just a blog post. So meaning you could just like write about your day, like write about what you literally did today. And then your id would be like, man, you didn't do enough. You need to do this. You could do that. You could be doing all these things. And the superego would be like, but like, what if you didn't? Like, what if you just did the things that you wanted to do? The last thing was this review assignment where you're looking at the defense mechanisms and then you are writing an example of a time you've used it. I had a question yesterday where somebody's like, well, can I use one of the examples from the book? I prefer if you didn't because I literally already put them there. I want you to try to think of a time you've used it. If you can't think of a time you've used it, think about maybe like a TV character, somebody from a movie, a book, video game, whatever it might be. Okay. That gets us through module 55. I think the only other thing I maybe didn't talk about was an important term, which was, where was it? Free association. This was Freud's kind of main technique that he used. And he believed that in order to get people to divulge like their deepest, darkest desires, their unconscious thoughts, that you needed to use this thing called free association. And it's basically a method of just like, it's his method of asking people questions and trying to dig deeper into like what was going on deep down and just giving them things that they can just freely kind of think about. So if you look in the book, the definition literally says a method of exploring the unconscious in which the person relaxes and says whatever comes to mind, no matter how trivial or embarrassing. All right, that gets us through module 55. If you have any questions, reach out to me, but I hope this gets a little bit answers some of those questions that you might have had. All right.